Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our digital living room here at AV Master. I'm Aviad Cohen, and today I have with me Nikos from Sony. Nikos is the
Yes.
sales manager for East Europe, including Israel. Say hi.
Hi, guys. Hi,
And
Aviad. Hi, Israel.
with the cool, awesome background, we have Chris Mullins. He's the European product manager for home cinema.
Hey everyone, nice to be here. Thanks,
Yep.
Aviad.
And we've taken a little detour from our professional method of work, and we're going to go a little bit off road for the fun part of home cinema. And that's why we have Chris today. So, Chris, you're going to take the lead for most questions, and Nikos, as being the responsible adult he is going to wrap everything up. So, this is going to be slightly COVID related, but like also an evolution of things. Home cinema has been evolving over the years. I think it has taken a giant leap in 2020, mostly stay at home. And question number one: how did 2020 affect home theater technologies adoption, and more specific, projectors?
Yeah, so I think as you said in your intro, yeah, it's been quite an interesting year. 2020 was. It was quite a tough situation with all the lockdowns and the restrictions we saw everywhere. I mean, you couldn't go out, you can go to the cinema, you can go to a restaurant, can go to school even, or go on holiday. So I think a lot of people were stuck at home wanting to be entertained, and we definitely saw at Sony, not just home cinema, but the broader home entertainment kind of sector, an increase in demand because of that, because people were spending the money they would have done on a holiday on maybe some home entertainment kit. And specifically for projectors, I think the interest in the uptake for projectors is that it's it's a large screen experience. It's quite a social experience, and I think people were looking for that during COVID. They wanted to entertain their friends, their family, their safety bubble. That was put in place during that time. So we definitely saw an increase in demand. I think we saw maybe 10-20% increased demand over the
Wow.
whole year. So it's quite a big increase. Didn't come. It wasn't all plain sailing for Sony. It's not just. It was quite a tough year. I mean, this pandemic affected supply chains. There's lots of constraints.
Still
It's tough
does,
on
by the
our.
way. Still does.
Still does. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's still ongoing, and also tough on our dealers as well. We had our dealers' showrooms were closed. I mean, people. The way to see home cinema is in a room like behind me. Going to visit it, experience it. It's not about buying it online. You want to go and feel it. And many of those were closed through 2020. So not all plain sailing, but overall, I think we managed to do at Sony a really good job at fulfilling as much demand as we could. And in 2020, we launched two brand new models. So it was quite an exciting year for actually three new models in 2020. That was
Hold
quite
it, hold
exciting.
it, hold it. This is like you're going forward with the next question.
Yes.
Um, we've seen some. This is a recurring question, but it has different answers. Depending on who you ask. Um, I've seen 2020 either create new models, tweak existing models, or propel and push existing models that were right on spot, right, that were spot on, just not the right time. And then the pandemic came, and oh my god, this was seen in AV, especially in UC. And my question would be here: did 2020 change anything in projection, feature wise or model perspective?
Yes, yeah. I mean, from our side, for sure. I mean, Sony broadly had like quite an amazing series of product launches in 2020. I mean, we had the PS5, we had, 8K TVs, we had new headphones. All these things still happened, even though the pandemic was happening. And home cinema was no different. We had those three new models I mentioned. And we had, just to tell you the details of those, we had the VW590, which is our kind of mid-range lamp projector, a kind of successor model to the 570. We launched the VW790, which is a premium laser at 2000 lumens. And then we had a brand new flagship as well, the GTZ380, which was 10,000 lumens. And the broad overarching concept with these projectors was to really improve HDR. This is one thing where projectors traditionally have kind of struggled a little bit with HDR. We don't have the same brightness as you get from a TV. So how could we change projectors to deliver a better HDR performance? So this was kind of our overall goal with the launches we started in 2020.
Just a small break, just because what we pride ourselves is delivering, the big terms in layman's terms. When you say HDR, what does it mean for the viewer? What effect does it have? Something that he can take away from this interview and say, yeah, that one. So how would the HDR, high dynamic range, affect that viewer? What does he need to demand in order to feel it? Because AV is all about seeing and feeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So HDR means a high dynamic range. So what this means is you have a bigger difference between the deepest dark areas of your image and the brightest white part of your image. You have a much wider range of those dynamics, but it's not just brightness. When people say, "Oh, I've got a high dynamic range projector," it's this brightness. It's not just about brightness. It's about resolution. It's about color performance, and it's about this deep black level. So when we talk about delivering an HDR experience, you're really looking to combine all of those together to give you a nice, well-rounded HDR experience. And HDR is not about just those eye-popping neons or something. It's about giving you a more realistic image. It's like when you look outside your window, you see these really bright highlights, and you see these nice greens, nice colors. And we're trying to replicate that as much as possible with the displays, being able to see reality as you would see it outside. So that's what HDR delivers. It is a big step change from standard dynamic range that we had a few years ago. So yeah, it's a massive improvement image quality wise.
I think at this point where everybody was already giving their eulogies to the cinemas, and that's dead. And I always thought, I enjoy watching films at home, but there's something about those places with big projectors. So what we do over the years, we take some features from that experience and we put those in home. What I'm asking is, do you think we're at the point where, home projectors have reached that level where you say, I enjoy the overall ambience of cinemas, but when it comes to quality, I think what I have at home exceeds that?
Yes, I think it's definitely, I would say the home cinema experience is actually exceeding what you can get in many cases in the cinema. One example of that is just pure brightness. You're dealing with a slightly smaller screen, obviously a smaller screen than what you'd get in the cinema. So you can spec your projector to hit a brightness slightly higher than that. Sorry, excuse me. But yes, and alongside that, there's many different technologies that deliver kind of dynamic improvements, especially with contrast and with HDR. And one of the big things we launched was X1 for the X1 for projector processor with our latest projectors, and this brings in a lot of our technologies that we have in our TV. Our picture processing at Sony is one of probably the best in class in the industry in terms of our display technologies, and we brought that over, optimized it for projectors, and also delivered a couple of projector focused features as well to deliver a better HDR experience. So one of those is dynamic HDR enhancer. So this is a dynamic tone mapping kind of technology. And just to explain what dynamic tone mapping is and why it's so important, just to inform everyone, it's super important for projectors. As I mentioned, the brightness is not as high as you get on TVs for projectors. So when someone makes content and says, I want a brightness at this really high bright point that a projector can't reach, you have to map that tone down to a level within the capability of your display, within the projector display. So what we do with this new processor is we have this dynamic HDR enhancer, and it will dynamically map much more accurately to the creator's intent than in the past with our projectors. So what that means is you have a much closer representation of HDR from what the creator intended, you know. So when you watch content, you have that HDR impact of the image. The last thing we want to do is compress everything so you don't get that HDR impact. We want to still widen the dynamic range. And we do that by kind of three things with this processor. Firstly, we have a much more powerful analysis of the HDR image. So we can finally analyze all the tonal variations in HDR, all the shadow tones, all the highlight tones, much more finer than the previous generation. And then we can apply processing to that to deliver a better HDR image. So the second thing we do is look at those highlights. We look at the top end. We say, how can we boost those? How can we adjust the tones to be much more accurate to the creator's intent? So we kind of adjust the top end with signal processing. And then the final thing we do is precision dimming. So with our projectors, like the 590 that has a dynamic iris that can close, or the laser projectors, you can dim the light source dynamically, frame by frame almost. So we actually do both things in parallel. We can precision dim, bring that black level down for HDR, and then also we can boost the highlights and get those highlights high. So the overall dynamic range is wider than it was before, and it's closer to the original intent from the creator. So it's really, really exciting stuff. I mean, I've seen a fair few home cinema projectors, and the step change between this generation and last generation in terms of HDR is really, really impressive stuff. And yeah, it's much closer to what the director intended, as I've mentioned several times already.
That was it's always, actually, as a video fan, it's always interesting and fascinating to me to see how much this is evolving and constantly. I remember a conversation back in 2009 and I said, well, 1080p looks awesome. And they showed me a demo of a video conferencing unit that does 4K. And he said, how does that look? Now do you understand why you cannot settle for one thing? The only thing that baffles me right now is 8K, and I don't know when this is happening, but I am excited to see it, as I've seen in ISE at ISE 2020, a demo of 8K.
Yeah,
that blew me away. I'm going to go a little bit back to one of the questions to further elaborate. So, because you spoke about the evolution in HDR and how you invest, and I know Sony is a very strategic company, and you follow market analysis, and you know what you're doing. The question is, do you think, or actually let's go off data, do you feel that 2021 is following through 2020, or is it different? Do you still see the trends continuing, or do they change? If they change, how so?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one, you know. It's a bit of a crystal ball thing. I mean, we're halfway through 2020, so I think we can all feel that yeah, this pandemic is still going. We're trying to do our best. I know in Israel and the UK, maybe we're a little step further than other countries or territories, but
we are.
The whole of Europe needs to and the world needs to move together to get out of this situation, and it's going to take some time. So I think restrictions will be in place, especially globally in some form or another, and there will be continued, I guess, home entertainment demand during those restrictions. But eventually as we get out, I imagine there'll be a reset to normality in terms of demand. You know, people will be able to go outside. You know, I think we're all looking forward to going on holiday or eating at a restaurant or whatever the things you can't do at the moment. So I think that's just fundamentally going to happen. I'm sure when all those releases come, it's going to come quite fast, but eventually it will reset. One thing we have done in 2020 or 2021, sorry, is actually launched 2 other models as well. We were quite keen to unify our lineup, and we actually did launch the VW290 and the 890. So we have like a complete unified lineup now, and the 290 is our most affordable 4K projector. This is the 1500 lumen entry-level lamp projector, and then we also launched the other end of the spectrum, our ultra premium VW890 with our flagship lens, the best glass available. as well, 2200 lumens. So now we've got a complete unified lineup, 290, 590, 890, or 790, 890, and they all include this X1 for projector processor. So yeah, those HDR benefits I was mentioning is really available to any budget now. You know, if you want a certain size screen and you have a certain size budget, you can pick and choose from our lineup and get the same great HDR performance. So yeah, it's quite exciting from that point of view, and it's a really great time in 2021 to invest in a home cinema.
So not a filler question, but this one just came to mind. I noticed because we had this other interview with Robert Meekin. Rob. He did projectors with Sony. He still is with Sony. And what he spoke of was actually having a projector in place for each grade. So for education, corporate, etc., etc. So this looks like, strategy-wise, the same thing Sony's doing for the home entertainment market.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Yeah. No, it's important, you know. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't matter how good your projector is. Sometimes people only have a certain budget, you know. People may have for their home cinema a 20 grand budget, or they may have a 50 grand budget, or they may have a €500,000 budget. You know, there's different people, different slices of life,
different houses
out there. Yeah, different houses, exactly. And that's why we have a full lineup, actually. Yeah, so from, as I said, that we even have an HD model below the 290 as well,
really?
which is which is our most entry level model. But yeah, for the 4K lineup, we have that 290 through to 890. And then also we have our flagship model, the GTZ380. So this is a 10,000 lumen projector. So this is really, really for those big rooms, those super yachts, those high net worth people. But again, that really changed what is possible with home cinema. You know, with Sony, as you said, we are quite a strategic company, and with home cinema in particular, we were the ones who launched home cinema. You know, we did the very first projector back in 1972, I think, something like that. And 50 years later, we're still leading that market. You know, and every kind of flagship model we try and do. We did the VW1100 back in 2011. It was the first ever native 4K projector, you know, the best image quality you could get from a home cinema. Then in 2016, we had the VW5000, you know, the first laser native 4K 5000 lumens. So really, again, another step change in brightness, in quality. And then with the 380, we're now 10,000 lumens, twice the brightness again. And we see with this model, it really changes what's possible with projectors on screen. You know, I was talking about that limitation of brightness with projectors. With GTZ380, it's practically gone. You know, we can hit the same levels of brightness as your large panels can do, but on a 4-meter screen, you know, 4 or 5 meter screen, you can hit more than 500 nits on screen with a projector, which is unheard of. You know, that's 5 times what you normally get. And alongside that, as I mentioned with HDR, it's not just about the brightness, it's about the resolution. So again, native 4K, again, it's high contrast with the SXRD panels, those deep blacks. But the main thing it also offers is color performance. So it hits this color space called DCI-P3. So this is the color space that Hollywood used to create all their content, you know. And if you can hit 100% of that, you can replicate the exact colors as you get in the movies, you know. And that's not 100. That's not very rare, I would say. You do see models with that, but the rare thing with the GTZ380 is that it does it without any brightness loss. So normally, when you do these advanced or wide color gamuts, you need to filter. You lose brightness. There's a compromise there. But with the GTZ380, we've completely redesigned the laser light engine, introduced additional red lasers. So we can cover it without any filtering. So the color volume you get with the GTZ380 is actually probably 2-3 times more than what you got with our previous flagship. So the HDR experience really is like next generation stuff, you know. So again, it's top tier. It's for those people who can spend money like that. But it really is. It just kind of gives people the idea of where we're going with Sony, you know. It's that high brightness, it's HDR. These technologies trickle down into the lineup. So you can see over the coming years, you'll see the direction we'll go. And also the massive thing we did with this is we managed to double the brightness in the same chassis size. So we made huge improvements in cooling, in these patented technologies that only Sony can can make to deliver that. So it really is exciting, this time with home cinema. There's never a better time to get involved.
Thank you. Nikos, before you take this home, I'm just trying to think this over, and I look at, screens are getting bigger, LEDs, OLEDs, get new technologies coming out, and get more screen coverage, and the brightness is the same all over. It's a little rude, I have to ask. Do you see this as, this age as the golden age for home theater projectors? Is it the next phase, or is it the beginning of the sunset era for projectors? Screens are getting bigger. Are they better? Are they the same consumers?
Is that to me or to Nikos?
That's to you. Well,
Oh, it's to me. Sorry. Okay.
Nikos has to wrap everything up. It's okay.
No, yeah. I think, to be honest, as I mentioned, even if you look back 10 years ago with projectors, we are so much further along in terms of image quality, brightness, and even though screens are getting bigger, I think the average TV screen size at home is now like 65-inch or something. It's not the same as a 150-inch cinema screen. There's still a long way to go, and also just the pure logistics of moving something that big around, if it was a TV, would be
Correct.
very, very tough. So I don't think we'll ever quite get to the same image size you can achieve with a projector with a TV. It's going to take a bit of time. But alongside that, it's not just the projector technology that's evolved in the home. It's also the audio side. It's not something necessarily Sony do for home cinema, but you can get immersive audio at home. You've got the Atmos, you've got the DTSX protocols as well. It gives you that full immersive 3D that is a big part of the experience. And also smart home integration. I don't think I go through a day without browsing the news and seeing some new smart home integration product, some new Amazon, Alexa, whatever, voice control, fridge or phone or something. So that has come on leaps and bounds. Now you can get a home cinema set up. If you speak to your dealer, get it designed, get it integrated properly, it can be super simple to use. Some people would be put off by it being so complicated, having 15 different remotes, to use your home cinema.
Agreed.
Whereas now you can pretty much say, I want to watch a film, and it'll go and do what you want to do. So it's as I said, it's a good time. There's lots of innovation, lots of new things coming along, and I really think it is the time to invest in 4K, because for once, 4K is everywhere now. All content
Agreed.
is 4K. All live content, movie content, gaming content, all of that stuff. Is really peaking now, and it's a great time. Yeah.
In one sentence, do your projectors support 4K HDR gaming?
Yes, they do. Yeah, but we do support it. Yeah, we have HDMI 2.0 ports on our projectors, so it supports 4K 60p HDR gaming, which is great for all types of games. It also has a input lag reduction mode, so basically you can turn that on, and then you get a really lag-free experience. So there are functions and tools within the projector to make it as optimal as possible.
We will correspond a little bit later about models.
Cool.
Hoping I don't get kicked out of the house for all the latest purchases. Chris, this has been amazing. Thank you very much for everything. Stay with us while Nikos takes it home.
So, there's three words I want to say, and this actually characterizes the home cinema, dream and the home cinema strategy of Sony. Seeing is believing. So this is what we say in Sony, and we'll be saying that for, I don't know how many years, Chris, right? So, I mean, and in Sony, we have the full circle starting from the capturing, and that's the only vendor at the moment who has that, from capturing the image with the high-end cameras, in the movies that Hollywood uses to the production part and to scaling with their OLED screens, and finally to the viewing, with home projectors or with OLED screens. So we say seeing is believing, and we really mean that. And in fact, in Israel, we have a huge a network of home cinema accredited resellers, which have 9 showrooms, 9 4K showrooms. And I mean, if anyone goes online to our website, they can just search, which showroom is closer to their home, and they're very well trained and very well actually educated to do a demo and finally install using the highest of technologies that Chris has said before, with automation, with nice screens. So, we've done a lot of things. We've actually built a lot our home cinema network, home cinema reseller network in Israel, which actually gives our customers and our consumers the capability to view these very, very good images that Chris has been saying. So thanks a lot for this invitation, Aviad, and it was a very, very good privilege for us to be here and discuss about that.
Guys, Chris and Nikos, thank you very much for coming into our living room. We will follow up on all home technologies because they're awesome. And thank you, guys, very, very much for your time. And I hope to see you soon for new announcements, updates, and see you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye.